People of faith should take a stand against the use of all casual drugs and addictive ones.
And this responsibility is not limited to people of faith.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome to another edition of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We're so very glad you have joined us. If this is your first time, I think you're going to enjoy what you'll see and what you'll hear today. Before we get started, I'd like for you to meet our panelists. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
My name is Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
And I'm Rabbi Jordan Ofsire, a retired rabbi living in Palm Springs, California, teaching classes on Judaica and leading services.
Hello, I'm Mel Robeck. I'm professor of church history and ecumenics at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and I'm a minister with the Assemblies of God.
Hi, I'm Dan Stearns, a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, pastoring in Richardson, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth mission field.
Hello, I'm Othel H. Lakey, a bishop in retirement of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, living in Buford, Georgia.
Hi, I'm Carl Trovall, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
Well, thank you for being here, gentlemen. I really do appreciate your taking time from your busy schedules. You all have great responsibilities, and I know that you're needed elsewhere, but we need you right here today for this particular subject, so we're glad that you could be here for it. We usually associate drug abuse with hard, wild living, but the same drugs that take over the lives of some willful celebrities, for example, could be abused by the nice mother who sits next to us at church, or even the pastor in the pulpit. Addiction knows no boundaries of status, lifestyle, or faith. The medications dispensed by our local pharmacists and tucked away in medicine cabinets could be just as powerful and just as addictive. According to recent research, the U.S. is the most medicated country in the world. In 2010, more than 210 million prescriptions were written for narcotics such as OxyContin, oxycodone, and Vicodin hydrocodone. An estimated 7 million Americans struggle with prescription drug addiction. Of course, not everyone who takes prescription narcotics becomes addicted, but in long-term and chronic pain management, migraines, back pain, surgery recovery, the lines get blurry as patients need more and more medication to ease the pain. Add underlying anxiety, and pills can become a way to manage life, going from pain control to addiction. When a pill addict tries to stop, withdrawal kicks in, rebound headaches, flu-like symptoms, and even worse, all easily mistaken for the original pain. One doesn't realize he is an addict until he is, and then he or she needs help. Prescription drug addiction is fast becoming a social plague, and sadly, many have found that there is very little grace in the world for pill addiction. Today, I would like our panelists to consider these three questions. What is the church's role in dealing with drug abuse among its members and in society in general? Next question. Like some religious people have done, should all people of faith take a stand against the use of even so-called socially accepted substances like alcohol? And finally, and since we are on the subject, what is your position on the legalization of marijuana? Now, these are the questions we hope to have answered here today, and let's get right to our subject. To do so, let's go back to those who made the opening statements, and for that we begin with Rabbi Ofsire.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin this brief section by observing that I believe that all too many of us take medication, but other people use drugs. We need to be very clear to distinguish between what we use and others use, and realize that there is an implicit value judgment that underlies these observations. Secondly, the question is, why should people of faith be concerned particularly about this issue? My response is very specific and very pointed, because it is a responsibility of people of faith to be concerned for others. That is the basis of what inheres in that observation. And third and lastly, if one looks around today at the preparations for an election, bi-term elections and soon a presidential election, we will find that there are all too many people who take the position, why should I care? I need to take care of myself. Why should I help other people do things that will be helpful to them? Well, we should do so because we are our brother's keepers, and because specifically that is the responsibility of people of faith. And I think that it is crucial not only in the area of drugs, but in every other aspect of life, to make clear going forward that we have a responsibility to others, and that needs to be reflected clearly in the political process as well as our interaction with others.
Thank you, Rabbi Ofsire. And Bishop Olson, you also made an opening statement. If you could please expand that for us.
Well, I'd reiterate everything the rabbi said as far as our responsibility as a people of faith involved with this. But I also think the problem of drug abuse and also how we approach other drugs, including alcohol, is not just simply the exclusive domain for religious people or the people of the church, but really is a societal issue, and it's also a public health issue that I think sometimes just as human beings in general, we tend to want to avoid our problems instead of trying to resolve them in a way that's going to require collaboration. And some of the ways we avoid our problems is just by simply numbing ourselves to the pain and numbing ourselves to the responsibility to change, and also maybe to give of ourselves or to change our position in order to come up with a solution that can be shared and collaborated with. I think because of that approach, oftentimes then the solution that we just have is no solution at all, but forestalls the problem and creates another problem, the problem of addiction, and then also the other attached problems that come with that, family strife and unemployment and other health issues that are attached to that. So it's really a societal challenge and a societal problem. Faith has to play a role in it. In other words, a trust in God and a higher power, and one that delivers us from the slavery of addiction, but then helps us also to live life on life's terms.
Well, thank you very much. Well, we're off and running on our subject. Let's hear what some of the others on the panel have to say about this. Let's come down the table to Dr. Troval. Your comments on the matter, please.
I remember a friend of mine told me, he said George Carlin had a stand-up routine in which he said, "Why do people use drugs?" And he said, "Because it helps." And I thought that was oddly profound because in its simplicity, because whether it's physical pain or whether it's emotional pain or whether it's grief or depression or wanting to enhance, a good feeling, oftentimes the use of drugs has a kind of innocent beginning and then it spins out of control. And I think it's easy to condemn it. I mean, I appreciate your distinction between medicine and abuse, Jordan. That was nice because I know other people got problems, but me. I hope that there are communities for people who are wrestling with this, and I hope faith communities are all the same, but they're not, I know that. But a safe community in which one can be completely honest and say, man, I'm struggling with this and I need help. and that there is an opportunity to be honest, that there's a non-shaming community, a non-judgmental community that addresses the issue that a person's struggling with. You know, is it self-esteem? Is it shame? Is it grief? Is it depression? What is it? And I think this is why communities like NA and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, these communities exist to help people be honest, but also to be in a place in which they realize that, that they have a profound need and that there's an answer, and because I mean, ultimately, I believe that these desires are really ultimately a desire to find a healing from God.
Yeah, thank you. Now, no one goes out looking to become addicted.
No.
But yet what you're doing is peeling back the veneer, and you're suggesting we need to address the underlying causes. And the church certainly has a place and a role in that regard. Let's come next to you here. Welcome back, Pastor Stearns. We're glad you're here. Your observations, please.
Yes, this is not only the problem with prescription abuse, drug abuse, is not only a big problem, but a growing problem. According to the National Institutes of Health, in the last 20 years, there are 3 times the prescriptions that there were before for painkillers. And 1 out of 10 high school seniors admit that in the last year they've taken pain-killing medication, whether they needed it or not. So this is a huge issue, and yet, yeah, it seems like others take drugs. I just take medicine. But we live in a society where if I can take it and it makes me feel better, it's okay. And that's programmed even into the youngest kids. You know, you feel bad, little baby, take this, take this. And so that whole mentality gets bigger and bigger. And so I'd suggest that we need to start thinking, are there other ways that we can go rather than popping a pill? Whatever it is, find some other avenue. And I personally have been blessed tremendously by something that was signed on June 20, 1912 by my grandfather when he was 9 years old. It's a temperance pledge card saying because he realized his body was God's temple, he would abstain from alcohol, tobacco, or poisonous narcotics, narcotic poisons, etc. And because he kept his pledge, my dad grew up in a home where none of those were used. And because my dad kept his pledge, I grew up in a home where there are none of those. And learning to put into practice in the home setting and encourage others to do the same and find a way forward. Galatians 5 says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, gentleness, patience, self-control. And God will help us.
Thank you very much. Let's come across the table now. Bishop Lakey, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good
Your
to be here.
comments,
And
please.
I've appreciated so much the comments that my brethren have made, especially the distinction between what Rabbi Jordan Offsire said. My comment is that we may be swimming against up the stream on this one as a faith community, in that we live in a culture that cultivates happiness, a feel-good society, and pain or struggle or unhappiness is taboo. We're inculcated with the idea that 24 hours a day, from the time we wake up and the time we go to bed, everything's supposed to be euphoric. We're supposed to be happy. We preach this in churches. You go to, you're supposed to be happy. I'm too, what is it in our community? You're too stressed. You're too blessed to be stressed. And, these things. When life is real and life is earnest, and you cannot get away from it. And anything you do is temporary. At some point, you got to come back to earth. And until we begin to understand that life is not supposed to be free of pain and free of struggle, because all of our addictions are not to ease physical pain. It is to try to provide a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, trying to be happy, trying to get along. These are spiritual type emotions. And those of us in faith, we like to say that, our faith in God is going to do this. And yet the people sitting in our pews come to us addicted sometimes to the things we're saying they don't need.
Thank you very much. I've noticed no one here has talked about guilty consciences
Yeah.
and seeking to relieve such. And it becomes kind of a vicious cycle. If you have a guilty conscience about something, well, let's cover that up.
Yes.
And then you feel guilty about covering it up. Well, next to you is Dr. Robeck. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. Your comments, please.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Bishop Lakey had to say here, as well as virtually everybody else on this show so far. I think we overprescribe and we overindulge precisely because we can. And I do think that there are lots of nations around the world that don't have access to these drugs, and they don't participate in the kinds of problems that we participate in at this point. I do think that there is a role for suffering in a person's life. Romans talks about how suffering produces patience or perseverance, and perseverance produces character, and character produces hope, and it goes on. There are a lot of consequences from learning how to suffer. Now, it doesn't mean I like pain, and it doesn't mean I like psychological depression or anxiety or anything, but it seems to me that one of the things that we do is deny the ability for ourselves to learn how to cope in the midst of all of this, that really does produce the kind of character that allows us or enables us to handle things that we otherwise would not be able to handle. One of the big problems that we have, I think, is the recreational use of these drugs, especially by our kids. And they have easy access because their parents have access to them. And when parents don't keep control of their own medicine cabinets, the kids are getting into that, and they're selling them and using them in schools and so forth. And these medications, some of which are there for pain, physical pain, and some which are there for emotional pain, really, in a sense, cover up the underlying issue that needs to be learned for us to learn how to cope. I mean, you mentioned guilt a minute ago, and I totally agree. It's on my list here. Fears, real and imagined, that we have, which produce the kind of anxiety that a lot of people live with. Feelings of powerlessness, or feelings of hopelessness, or feelings of inferiority, whether they're real or they're imagined. Or I have a guy that calls me almost every day in my office. He's a man of at least 60 years of age. And I will say, hello, how are you today? He says, I'm bored. Well, that's not my problem, but why is a 60-year-old man calling me and telling me that he's bored? He's very depressed because of decisions that he's made throughout his life that have added up, and he hasn't yet learned how to cope with these kinds of things. So I'm very concerned about how these things become used or abused to cover up the kinds of realities that all of us have to face at some point in time.
Thank you, Dr. Robeck. Rabbi Aufseier, you seem to suggest there is a place for prescription medicine. I mean, obviously, for those who suffer chronically. What about those who do have chronic pain? How are they to manage this if there isn't something to help them get along? What do you think?
They should have something that can help them if it is clear that what they are suffering from is chronic physical pain. Just a couple of observations that I wanted to make. The human condition is such that the more sensitive that we are as human beings, the wider range of emotions we will feel and we will experience. If you feel jealous about the cow in the field chewing its cud and feeling good, recognize that you would not ever want to live in as narrow a range of awareness as does the cow. Secondly, I'd like to suggest that not only is pain a part of this reality, but when we suffer, we need to have a sense of why to the extent that we can do so. I think that's very, very important. But the human condition is such to be able to the natural part of it is to feel this wide range of emotion. And the people that we admire the most, the artists and the creative people who have delved in their lives into these feelings, feel it even more deeply than we, but it is available to each of us. And the price of that is sometimes to suffer. And our task is, the Hebrew is lemeh ani amel, What am I suffering for? Am I suffering in the name of something that is not only for myself, but beyond myself as well?
All right, thank you very much. Pastor Stearns, we just have a few seconds left in this segment.
I think when a person is in serious, serious pain, they have a choice. They can either reach for the drug, reach for the pill, or in some cases they can pray. In some cases they can get up and go for a short walk. Other cases they can drink some water. So if we can help people see that the immediate reaction does not have to be pick up the pill, it can help them.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, so please stand by for an important message.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
And welcome back. And yes, indeed, thank you for writing. We get some great suggestions from our viewers, from those who tune in to watch us via the internet. By the way, you should probably check out the archive there. We have many programs from the past that I'm sure you'll be interested in viewing. And we look forward to hearing from you. Now let's go to our summations. And for that, let's return to Bishop Olson.
We all are faced with legitimate health issues that can require the assistance of narcotics. Of course, this should be prescribed and should be under a doctor's monitoring and care. But always, these are not the ultimate solution to some of the major problems that we face in life that are just a part of life and living, that require virtues like courage, perseverance, as well as wisdom.
Thank you very much. And now, Dr. Robeck.
I think it's important to note in a conversation about drugs and so forth that the most problematic drug that we have in this country is an over-the-counter, without prescription drug called alcohol. And it certainly has been closer to me in terms of family members and friends that has been problematic. But I think that any kind of overuse of drugs is problematic, especially if they have an influence on who you are, the lowering of inhibitions, the possibility of making you vulnerable to other people on a variety of fronts. And I think we all have to keep our eyes open for those who are close to us especially, but also for others that we see in our community, in our churches, synagogues, mosques, or wherever that seem to be out of control in these areas. I think we are our brother's keepers, as you put it earlier.
Thank you for that reminder. Now, next to you, Bishop Lakey.
Thank you very much.
Summation.
One thing I learned from this program is the next time I'm bored, instead of popping a pill, I'll call Mel Robeck. But
I've got lots of ideas now.
But we in the religious community, faith community, must help our people understand that life is really not a bed of roses. It has its ups and its downs, its good and its bad. And faith helps us overcome these, and we do not always need these artificialities to help us cope with life.
Good advice. Thank you. Across the table, Dr. Troval.
Well, and to piggyback on that, I hope that all of our communities are ones that are open and non-judgmental and non-shaming. They're there to genuinely help people, to encourage them to foster the virtues, as you mentioned, and also to help them move forward in their life and to connect them with God and the community in deeper ways.
Amen.
Thank you. Now, Pastor Stearns, your summation.
When our little kids were little kids, my wife and I said, what can we do to help stem the tide of tobacco, alcohol, narcotics, and all of that? So we sat down little Jacob when he's 5 years old, and we said, Jacob, if you don't ever use tobacco, alcohol, or illegal drugs, at 20th birthday we'll give you $1,000 cash. we put $5 a month away in savings. And several times he said during his teen years, he had people say, hey, you want to try this? You want to try this? He says, that's crazy. I'd give up $1,000. And he had people say, well, if my parents did that, maybe I wouldn't have started. And we were happy to give him the $1,000 instead of use it for bail money or something else. So anyway, we've encouraged a lot of families to do that. And I think families, if they ask for God's help, can see God help them raise kids who can be free of these things as far as possible.
Thank you, Pastor Stearns. And now, Rabbi Offsire, your summation.
Yeah, I decided that I want to take one that's obliquely connected to what we've been talking about, and I'll do it very briefly. I would like to suggest that each of us would do better in our lives if every morning when we woke up, we put a certain amount of gratefulness, a sense of appreciation in an emotional bank account that we will have to draw upon in the more difficult times. All of us seem to be, all too often, overwhelmed by negative kinds of feelings. We need to realize that we are indeed empowered. And what is at the heart, for me, of the religious enterprise is an appreciation, a gratefulness for all of the many, many gifts that we have. And there are so many of them that we simply don't even consider and take for granted. I haven't the time to give a list, but if I did, I would. And that in itself can help to readjust the balance in our lives. No easy answers, but that very brief suggestion for each of us. A deposit in our bank of gratefulness each day.
Thank you. Good counsel, good advice. And this has been an enlightening program today, and thank you so much for your participation. And to our viewers, I would suggest that if you are struggling with such an addiction or you're needing some help, help is available. And I would encourage you, as I think everyone around the table would encourage you to seek that help. In the meantime, we'll be praying for you, and we also solicit your prayers as we continue to work together for the betterment of our society and for the good of the people who are important around us in our lives. The charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel and by whatever means you've watched our program, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.